There's a strange kind of suffering that comes from trying too hard to hold everything together. You know it. That silent war inside your chest, the constant tension, the quiet exhaustion, the feeling that if you could just control a little more, fix a little faster, force a little harder, maybe then life would finally cooperate. Maybe then peace would come. But what if the very act of forcing is what's keeping you stuck? We grow up believing that life must be conquered, that every outcome must be managed, every uncertainty crushed, every deviation corrected. But the more we try to grip life like a clenched fist, the more it slips through our fingers. Alan Watts once said, "The harder we try to control the world, the less we are able to enjoy it." And somewhere deep down, we know this. We feel it. Every time we win a battle but lose ourselves. Every time we chase control but sacrifice joy. There is another way. A way not of passivity but of presence. Not of domination but of alignment. A way of living that doesn't demand constant struggle but invites trust. Trust in the flow of life. Trust in your own resilience. Trust in the quiet unfolding of things beyond your control. Today, we are going to step into that way, together, gently, thoughtfully, through the wisdom of Alan Watts, Marcus Aurelius, Lao Tzu, Seneca, and others who learned and taught the quiet art of letting go. Because when you stop forcing life, everything begins to change. The exhaustion of constant control. There is a kind of tiredness that sleep cannot heal, a deep, invisible fatigue that creeps into your bones when you live every day trying to force life into your hands. You think that if you can just plan better, work harder, anticipate more, you will finally feel safe. But instead, every attempt to dominate life tightens the knot inside your chest. You move faster, you think harder, you push stronger, and still, peace remains just out of reach, like a shadow you can see but never touch. Alan Watts captured this with piercing clarity. The harder we try to control the world, the less we are able to enjoy it. Control is seductive because it promises security. It whispers that if you grip tightly enough, nothing can hurt you. But that promise is a lie, because life is not a machine you can program. It's a living, breathing current. And trying to control it is like trying to trap the wind inside your hands. You don't catch it. You lose yourself in the effort. Marcus Aurelius, centuries before Watts, pointed us inward. Nowhere you can go is more peaceful, more free of interruptions, than your own soul. Notice what he didn't say. He didn't promise that life itself would become peaceful. He didn't say the world would quiet down if you worked hard enough. He said that the only place real peace can be found is within, the one place most of us forget to look while frantically trying to control everything outside of us. Think about it. How much of your exhaustion comes not from life itself, but from your resistance to it? How often do you feel drained, not because of what happened, but because of the mental war you fought trying to prevent, predict, or perfect it? Control is exhausting because it's endless. There's always one more detail to manage, one more risk to eliminate, one more outcome to guarantee. You can never rest. You can never breathe, because rest requires trust. And trust cannot exist where fear reigns. It's not that discipline is wrong, or that planning is bad. There's wisdom in preparation, in responsibility, in taking action. But when your preparation becomes obsession, when your action is fueled by fear rather than flow, you leave the realm of wisdom and enter the prison of anxiety. You stop living and start surviving. Imagine life as a river. If you spend all your energy trying to dam it, redirect it, control its every movement, you exhaust yourself and distort its natural course. But if you learn to navigate it, if you learn to move with its currents instead of against them, you conserve your strength. You move farther, faster, and with greater ease. The exhaustion you feel isn't because life is too much. It's because control has become too heavy to carry. So what would happen if, just for a moment, you put it down? If you stopped trying to control every conversation, every outcome, every step ahead? If you trusted yourself enough to respond rather than preempt? If you believed that you could handle what comes, not because you engineered it perfectly, but because you've built resilience within? Maybe the greatest peace isn't found in securing every external variable, but in releasing the need to. Maybe it's time to stop bracing against life and start standing with it. The art of effortless action. What if mastery wasn't about doing more, but about doing less, with greater precision? We're taught to believe that success comes from constant struggle, that the harder we push, the better we become, that the mark of greatness is exhaustion, outworking, outthinking, outlasting everyone around us. But real mastery, the kind that lasts, doesn't come from force. It comes from flow. It comes from moving with life, not against it. Lao Tzu, the ancient master of the Tao, spoke of this in a single, elegant truth. Practice not doing, and everything will fall into place. At first glance, it sounds like a paradox. How can action come from not doing? But when you look closer, you realize he wasn't calling for laziness. He was pointing to something deeper, a state where your actions arise naturally from the moment itself, without tension, without friction. Alan Watts called this Wu Wei, the art of effortless action. It's not about passive surrender, it's about aligned movement. It's when you act, not from desperation, but from understanding, not from panic, but from presence. When your efforts are so finely tuned to reality that they seem effortless, even when they are full of energy. Think of a skilled dancer. They don't fight the music. They don't plan each step with rigid intensity. They listen. They feel. Their movements arise naturally, flowing with the rhythm rather than trying to command it. That's Wu Wei. That's effortless action. But most of us live the opposite way. We try to bend reality to fit our expectations. We rush decisions. We push harder when things resist, convinced that more pressure will break the obstacle. Sometimes it works, temporarily. But often, all we create is more resistance, more exhaustion, more distance from the flow of life. Effortless action doesn't mean you do nothing. It means you learn the right timing. You understand when to act boldly and when to wait patiently. You sense when a door is opening and when a door is closing, and you stop wasting your energy trying to batter down walls that were never meant for you to pass through. There is incredible strength in restraint, power in patience, mastery in stillness. Because when you no longer act from anxiety, your actions carry the full weight of your presence, focused, clear, undistracted. And when you move from that place, you don't have to force your way forward. You glide, you adapt, you succeed, not by crushing life under your will, but by weaving yourself into its deeper patterns. Alan Watts put it beautifully. Wu Wei is the cultivation of a mental state in which actions flow naturally without resistance. You don't lose your ambition. You lose your need to fight everything. You don't abandon goals. You abandon panic. You trust that the right actions, taken from the right state of mind, will lead you exactly where you're meant to be, without having to exhaust yourself into collapse. So the question becomes, Are you forcing your life, or are you flowing with it? When you master the art of effortless action, success doesn't feel like survival anymore. It feels like breathing, like moving with the current, not drowning in it. And maybe, just maybe, that's the kind of mastery worth pursuing. Flowing with life instead of fighting it. Have you ever noticed that the harder you fight the current, the more you sink? Life is not something you can wrestle into submission. It's not a machine you can command with the right combination of effort and strategy. Life is more like a river, wide, deep, and in constant motion. And when we refuse to move with it, when we dig in our heels and demand that it flow our way, we end up exhausted, battered, and stranded. The wisdom traditions knew this long before modern psychology ever caught up. A simple Zen proverb says it clearly: let go or be dragged. There is no third option. You either learn to release your rigid grip on how you think life should be, or you get dragged painfully by what you refuse to accept. Alan Watts described it perfectly. Trying to force life is like trying to grab water. You can't hold it, you can only swim with it. The tighter your grip, the more you lose. The more you tense against life, the more it slips through your fingers. You don't master water by fighting it. You learn to float, to move with it, to understand its currents, to trust its flow. So much of our suffering doesn't come from what happens to us. It comes from our resistance to what happens. We imagine a perfect future, a perfect relationship, a perfect self. And when reality refuses to match our fantasies, we feel betrayed, wounded, abandoned. But life never promised us perfect images. It promised change, motion, evolution. Life isn't here to obey our demands. It's here to teach us how to adapt. There's a hidden strength in surrender, not the kind of surrender that means giving up, but the kind that means waking up. Waking up to the fact that fighting reality doesn't change it. Waking up to the fact that acceptance isn't weakness, it's wisdom. The wisdom to say, this is what's here. I may not have chosen it, but I can choose how I meet it. Imagine for a moment a tree in a storm. A rigid, unyielding tree will snap under pressure, but a tree that bends with the wind survives. It doesn't fight the storm, it flows with it. It trusts that its roots are strong enough to endure the shifting winds. That's the kind of strength life is asking you to cultivate. Not brittle force, but flexible resilience. The irony is, when you stop fighting life, you don't lose your power. You amplify it. You conserve your energy for what matters. You stop wasting yourself on battles that were never yours to win. You learn to move with life's tides, adapting, adjusting, persisting, without losing your center. So the next time life pulls you in a direction you didn't plan, pause, breathe. Instead of asking, how do I force this to change? Try asking, what is life inviting me to learn here? Instead of clenching your fists, open your hands. Instead of shouting against the current, listen to it. Because life is not your enemy. It's the river you were born to swim. And maybe, just maybe, the places you're meant to reach can't be found by fighting, but only by flowing. Learning to trust the unfolding. We live under the illusion that if we just plan hard enough, predict well enough, or try with enough intensity, we can control life. That with enough effort, we can shape every moment into the form we prefer. But life has never signed that contract, and the quiet truth is, it never will. There's a certain kind of fear that lives just beneath the surface of all our striving. A fear that if we loosen our grip even a little, everything will fall apart. That if we don't hold the wheel tightly with both hands, disaster will rush in. But what if the opposite is true? What if life flows more freely, more beautifully, when we stop trying to force it to obey our limited imagination? Socrates understood this when he said, "True knowledge exists in knowing that you know nothing." There is a wisdom that doesn't come from accumulation, but from surrender. Not the surrender of defeat, but the surrender of arrogance. The humility to admit that we don't know all the factors at play, and we never will. That life is bigger than any one mind can comprehend. Alan Watts echoed this beautifully. Faith is a state of openness or trust, not trust in outcomes, not trust that life will give us exactly what we want, but trust in the unfolding, trust that life, mysterious as it is, carries a deeper intelligence than our fear can recognize. Think about it. Every major turning point in your life, the unexpected friendships, the opportunities that arose out of nowhere, the lessons you didn't know you needed. How many of those came from strict planning? How many were things you could have predicted, mapped, or forced? We imagine that control equals safety, but real safety, the kind that endures, comes not from control, but from adaptability, from learning to stand inside uncertainty without letting it fracture us, from understanding that our job is not to control the river, but to learn how to swim. Imagine a sailor at sea. If they try to command the winds, shout at the waves, demand that the ocean obey their will, they'll find themselves defeated, exhausted, and lost. But the skilled sailor doesn't fight the sea. They listen to it. They adjust their sails, they adapt to the tides, they respect the currents, and in doing so, they move forward, not by domination, but by cooperation with forces greater than themselves. This is what learning to trust the unfolding looks like. It doesn't mean sitting back passively. It means moving with presence, with responsiveness, with the deep understanding that we are participants in life, not its puppet masters. And yes, there will be moments of fear, moments where it feels like everything is falling apart, moments where the temptation to grab, to fix, to force feels overwhelming. That's human, but every time you resist that impulse, every time you breathe instead of panic, wait instead of rush, listen instead of dictate, you strengthen a quieter kind of power within yourself, a resilience built not on control, but on trust. The greatest transformations often happen in the dark, unseen, unplanned, unexpected. Seeds break open underground long before we see any signs of life. Healing often happens in silence, before the outer symptoms change. And growth, real growth, usually doesn't announce itself until long after the first quiet decision to trust the process has been made. So the next time you find yourself tangled in anxiety, desperate for clarity, craving a guaranteed outcome, remember this: you don't have to know what's coming next to move forward. You don't have to have all the answers to trust the direction your soul is pulling you toward. You don't have to force the unfolding. You only have to stay present enough to recognize it. Trust is not passive. It is the most active choice you can make, the choice to meet life with open hands instead of clenched fists, the choice to dance with the unknown rather than fear it, the choice to live as if life, in its own mysterious way, is always working with you, not against you. And maybe, just maybe, when you surrender your need to control the story, you finally allow the story to surprise you with something even better than you imagined. Because the unfolding was never your enemy, it was your teacher all along. Living beyond the race for achievement. How much of your life has been spent running toward a finish line you can't even see? From the time we are young, the world trains us to race, Get the grades, get the job, get the promotion, get the house, get the approval, move faster, achieve more, be better. And the promise whispered in the background is always the same. When you finally arrive, then you'll be happy. Then you'll be at peace. But what if the finish line keeps moving? What if every time you reach it, it pulls a little farther away, demanding even more from you and offering even less in return? Alan Watts pointed to this madness when he said, "The meaning of life is just to be alive." Simple, profound, and completely at odds with the way most of us live. We are conditioned to treat life as a project to be completed, a summit to be conquered. But life is not a task to be checked off. It's not a trophy to be won. Life is a dance, a song to be sung, a moment to be lived, not a goal to be achieved. Nietzsche, too, reminded us, "He who climbs upon the highest mountains laughs at all tragedies, real or imaginary, because once you step outside the race, once you see the frantic striving for what it is, you begin to laugh. You realize that most of the stress, most of the fear, most of the urgency that once gripped you were illusions. Shadows on the wall of a cave you no longer need to stay in." When you live trapped in the race for achievement, life becomes transactional. Every experience is weighed, judged, measured. You don't walk through a forest. You calculate how many steps it takes. You don't enjoy a conversation. You measure how impressive you sounded. You don't create art. You worry whether it will succeed. But when you step beyond the race, something extraordinary happens. You start to feel life again. You taste your coffee instead of gulping it. You hear the wind instead of rushing past it. You meet people without sizing them up or comparing yourself. You breathe without rushing to the next task. It's not that you lose ambition. It's that your ambition becomes cleaner, freer, unchained from the fear of inadequacy. You stop striving to prove something. You start striving to express something. You don't stop dreaming. You dream better dreams, deeper ones, dreams rooted in meaning, not in appearances. Living beyond the race doesn't mean giving up on effort. It means giving up on franticness. It means exchanging the frantic pursuit of external validation for a deeper, quieter devotion to growth, for its own sake, not for applause. And ironically, when you stop living like life is a race, you often achieve more. But it comes differently. It comes without burning yourself to the ground. It comes with joy in the process, not just relief at the outcome. It comes because your actions flow from who you are, not who you're desperately trying to become. Ask yourself, whose race are you running? Who decided that your worth would be measured by speed, by accumulation, by the visible milestones you can display to the world? You don't have to abandon all your goals. You simply have to stop believing that your soul depends on crossing some invisible finish line. Because the real tragedy isn't failing to arrive. It's racing through your one precious life so fast that you forget to live it at all. So slow down. Listen. The meaning of life isn't waiting for you at some distant summit. It's right here, in the rhythm of your own breath, in the sound of your own heartbeat, in the way you show up to this moment, fully alive, even if no one else sees it. And maybe, just maybe, true success isn't winning the race, but realizing you never needed to run it in the first place. The river that carries without effort. Have you ever watched a river move and realized it doesn't rush, yet it reaches? There's a wisdom in water that we often forget, a rhythm older than words, older than fear. The river doesn't panic its way toward the ocean. It doesn't obsess over its path. It doesn't control every rock, every turn. It simply flows. patient, persistent, and unstoppable. Alan Watts, in his gentle brilliance, pointed us back to this truth. You don't look out there for God, something in the sky. You look in you. The river is not outside you. The flow is not something separate, distant. It's within. It's the natural intelligence of life itself, carrying you, guiding you, if you have the courage to stop fighting and start feeling it. Epictetus gave the same wisdom through a Stoic lens. Seek not for events to happen as you wish, but wish for events to happen as they do, and your life will flow smoothly. This isn't about passive resignation. It's about realizing that your deepest strength isn't in commanding the river. It's in learning how to move with it, with skill, with grace, with a mind unburdened by resistance. Imagine for a moment standing beside a river. If you try to grab a handful of water and force it into a shape, it slips through your fingers. The tighter you squeeze, the less you hold. But if you cup your hands gently, if you allow the water to rest within them naturally, you carry it effortlessly. Life is no different. We often think that achievement, growth, transformation, all the things we long for, must be wrung from the world by sheer force. We believe that tension is the price of success. But what if the opposite were true? What if the real price of success is surrender? Surrender not in weakness, but in wisdom, trusting that the same energy that moves the rivers, that turns seasons, that spins galaxies, is moving through your life too. There is an elegance in effortless progress, a strength that doesn't roar, but endures. When you learn to flow with the current instead of against it, your steps become lighter, your decisions become clearer. You waste less energy fighting battles that were never yours to win. You no longer need to panic your way into growth. Growth becomes your nature. And yes, the river has obstacles, rocks, fallen trees, shallow stretches, storms. But the river doesn't stop because of them. It doesn't curse the rock for being in its path. It simply moves, around, over, under, constant, unbothered, unhurried. Can you live like that? Can you trust that every obstacle is not a signal to force harder, but a whisper to adapt smarter? Can you believe that life's detours are not mistakes, but redirections, bending you toward a destination your mind may not yet see, but your soul already knows? The real work isn't about creating the current. It's about attuning yourself to it, listening, adjusting, trusting that when you move with life, even the obstacles become part of the dance. You won't reach peace by forcing the river to flow faster. You reach peace by remembering that you are part of its movement, not apart from it. You are not here to conquer nature. You are nature. You are not a stranger in this world. You belong here, in the current, exactly as you are. So stop bracing, stop demanding, stop exhausting yourself trying to swim upstream against what life is already offering you. Open your hands, soften your heart, trust the river, because when you do, you discover something miraculous. You're already being carried toward the place you're meant to reach, without needing to force a thing. The illusion of speed and control. Why do we believe that faster means better, that more means progress, that domination means mastery? Modern life has sold us a dangerous illusion, that the faster you move, the more successful you are, that the more you can control, the safer you become, that the louder your impact, the greater your worth. And so we hurry, we multitask, we chase deadlines, metrics, milestones. We sprint through days, months, years, chasing a finish line that keeps vanishing the closer we get. But speed without awareness is not progress. It's chaos dressed up as ambition. Seneca, writing centuries ago, warned us, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. The tragedy is not that life is brief. The tragedy is that we spend so much of it in frantic motion, without ever truly arriving in the moments that make it worth living." Alan Watts captured the same truth with piercing simplicity. This is the real secret of life: to be completely engaged with what you are doing in the here and now, not to be half present in one task while thinking about 3 others, not to rush through experiences just to tick them off a list, but to be fully here, undistracted, undivided, alive. When you worship speed and control, life becomes mechanical. Every task is a means to an end. Every conversation is rushed. Every relationship becomes transactional. You don't walk through your days. You race through them, barely touching the ground. And the irony is cruel. The faster you move, the more life blurs past you, the more it escapes your grasp. It's like trying to enjoy a landscape while speeding down a highway at 100 miles per hour. You see shapes, colors, flashes, but you miss the details, the textures, the depth. And if you live like that long enough, you wake up one day realizing that you've missed the very thing you were racing so hard to reach, the experience of living itself. Control, too, is a seductive illusion. It promises certainty. It whispers that if you just plan enough, organize enough, dominate enough, you can eliminate pain, loss, failure. But life is not a machine to be engineered. It's a mystery to be engaged with, moment by moment, breath by breath. True mastery is not the ability to control everything. It's the ability to remain fully present in whatever unfolds, to move skillfully with uncertainty, to engage life deeply without needing to dictate its every move. Imagine for a moment a musician playing jazz. They don't control every note. They listen, they respond, they flow. Mastery in jazz, as in life, isn't rigid perfection. It's fluid presence. It's being so attuned to the moment that your actions arise naturally, without franticness, without fear. You don't lose yourself by slowing down. You find yourself. You don't fall behind by stepping off the racetrack. You step into your own rhythm, a rhythm that may be slower, quieter, less flashy, but infinitely more real. Ask yourself, are you moving because you're called forward, or because you're afraid of standing still? Are you acting from purpose, or reacting from panic? There's a kind of power that moves calmly, deliberately, unrushed. It's the kind of power that builds things that last, that creates beauty that endures, that loves with presence instead of performance. And maybe, just maybe, you don't need to move faster. You need to move truer. You don't need to control more. You need to trust deeper, because life isn't asking you to conquer it. It's asking you to dance with it, fully present, fully alive, fully here. The power of conscious surrender. What if the strength you've been seeking doesn't come from holding on tighter, but from letting go, fully aware, fully awake? We've been taught that surrender is weakness, that to let go is to give up, that to yield is to lose. So we build armor around our hearts, we grip harder to our plans, we push ourselves to exhaustion, all in the name of strength. But real strength, the kind that bends but does not break, the kind that endures through every storm, comes not from resisting life, but from flowing with it. Lao Tzu understood this when he wrote, "Water is fluid, soft, and yielding. But water will wear away rock, which is rigid and cannot yield. Water does not fight. It does not rage against the obstacles in its path. It moves around them, over them, through them, and in the end, it shapes mountains. Surrender when conscious is not defeat. It's alignment. It's recognizing that there are forces at work larger than your fear, larger than your plans, larger than your ego's demands. It's trusting that you do not have to manufacture every outcome by brute force. It's believing that life has a wisdom of its own, one that you are part of, not separate from. Alan Watts put it playfully but powerfully: man suffers only because he takes seriously what the gods made for fun. We suffer because we cling so tightly to our expectations. We demand that life make sense on our timeline, that every story arc neatly resolve, that every plan work out exactly as we pictured it. But life was never meant to be a machine you could program. It was meant to be lived, fully, freely, without the crushing weight of perfectionism. Conscious surrender doesn't mean you stop acting. It means you stop forcing. It means you take the steps you can, with presence and clarity, and then release the obsessive need to control every ripple afterward. It means you meet life with open hands instead of clenched fists. It means you do your part, and then you allow life to do its part. Imagine holding a bird in your hands. If you squeeze too tightly, you crush it. If you hold it gently, it rests with you. And when the time comes, it flies free, just as it was meant to. Life is like that. The more you try to trap it, to lock it into your designs, the more it struggles, the more it slips away. But when you honor its nature, when you let it breathe, it often offers you more beauty than you could have demanded. Surrender is not about passivity. It's about trust. Trust in your ability to respond to whatever arises. Trust in life's deeper intelligence. Trust that you are part of something greater than your fear. Ask yourself, what am I holding on to so tightly that it's hurting me? Where could I soften my grip, trust the process, and allow life to unfold without my constant interference? Because sometimes the greatest courage is not in tightening your hold, but in loosening it. Sometimes the greatest act of strength is not in commanding life to bend to your will, but in bowing to the mystery you're part of. And when you surrender, not out of defeat, but out of deep, conscious trust, you don't lose your power. You discover it. You realize you were never meant to control the river. You were meant to swim in it. You were meant to trust its current. You were meant to live, not clenched and armored, but open, fluid, awake. Because only when you stop gripping so tightly can you finally feel yourself carried by the deeper flow you were part of all along. Attuning action to reality. What if success isn't about imposing your will on life, but about listening more closely to what life is already saying? We're taught that achievement is a matter of force. Set the goal, charge ahead, bend circumstances to your design. But reality is not a blank canvas waiting for your brush. It's a living, breathing entity, full of currents, rhythms, and forces you cannot always predict or control. And the wisest among us are not those who force their way forward blindly, but those who learn to attune their actions to the subtle music already playing beneath the surface. Socrates, one of the first true masters of humility in action, said, "To be is to do." Simple, yet profound. Your being shapes your doing. Your depth determines your direction. Your awareness becomes the foundation of your effectiveness. Without alignment between your inner state and the reality around you, your actions become scattered. A frantic attempt to fight battles that don't need fighting, to chase outcomes that aren't aligned with your path. Alan Watts expanded this idea. The more a thing tends to be permanent, the more it tends to be lifeless. When you try to freeze life into a fixed image of how it should be, you strip it of its vitality. You turn the living river into a stagnant pond, and in doing so, you lose the very life you were trying to control. Attuning your actions to reality means learning to listen before you act. It means moving not out of panic or pride, but out of perception. It's the difference between sailing with the wind and trying to row against a hurricane. One leads to grace. The other leads to exhaustion. Think of the best moments of your life, not the ones you forced, but the ones that unfolded naturally. The conversations that flowed without effort. The opportunities that appeared when you were deeply engaged in your own work, not chasing recognition. The connections that grew because you were present, not performative. In every one of those moments, you weren't forcing life. You were dancing with it. Attunement begins with humility. The humility to accept that you do not command the tides. The humility to recognize when the door is closing, and to seek the next one opening instead of beating endlessly against a wall. The humility to act boldly when the moment is ripe, and to wait patiently when it is not. And it requires trust. Trust that even when you don't understand why things are happening the way they are, life is not punishing you, it's positioning you. Trust that some delays are not denials, but preparations. That some endings are not failures, but gateways. When you learn to align your action with reality, your energy stops leaking into futile struggles. You become more precise, more focused, more powerful, not because you're working harder, but because you're moving smarter. You're not wasting strength fighting what doesn't need to be fought. You're directing your energy toward what wants to grow. So ask yourself, where am I forcing something that no longer fits? Where am I ignoring the signs life is giving me? Out of pride, out of fear, out of stubbornness. And more importantly, where is life opening a door that I've been too focused to see? Because when you start listening, truly listening, to the reality unfolding around you, your actions no longer need to be frantic or desperate. They become deliberate, grounded, effective. You stop trying to control the symphony of life, and instead, you find your place within it. You play your part fully, skillfully, beautifully, not because you forced the music, but because you finally heard it. Freedom through alignment, not domination. What if true freedom isn't about mastering life, but about mastering your relationship with it? We grow up believing that freedom is domination. The ability to control every outcome, to command the world to our liking, to build a life where nothing can touch us without our consent. But the harder we chase that illusion, the more we realize domination doesn't liberate us. It traps us. It isolates us. It sets us at war with reality, a war we can never truly win. Marcus Aurelius, with the clarity that only hard-won wisdom can bring, wrote, "Accept whatever comes to you woven in the pattern of your destiny, for what could more aptly fit your needs?" There's a quiet power in these words, an invitation not to surrender to despair, but to awaken to a deeper truth, that life is not a series of accidents to be fought against, but a tapestry, intricate and wise, weaving itself through your very being. When you align yourself with life, instead of constantly battling it, you discover a new kind of freedom, a freedom that isn't dependent on circumstances, a freedom that doesn't vanish when things don't go your way, a freedom rooted in presence, resilience, and trust. Nietzsche captured this spirit when he said, "Become who you are, not who the world tells you to be, not who fear demands you become, but who you are at your core, the part of you that is already aligned with life's greater movement, if only you would listen. Alignment doesn't mean passivity. It doesn't mean letting life happen to you without agency or direction. It means learning to act in harmony with the deeper forces moving through your existence. It means setting intentions, taking bold steps, making choices, but doing so with an openness to adjust, to adapt, to be shaped by the unfolding rather than trying to strangle it into submission. There's a profound difference between forcing life and dancing with it. The one exhausts you, isolates you, hardens you. The other energizes you, connects you, frees you. Think of a surfer riding a wave. He doesn't control the ocean. He doesn't demand the wave move to his will. He studies it. He feels its rhythm. He positions himself skillfully, and then he lets the wave carry him. His freedom doesn't come from domination. It comes from alignment, from knowing when to move, when to wait, when to adjust. Life is no different. The pursuit of domination will leave you constantly tense, perpetually dissatisfied, always in conflict with the reality that refuses to bow to your commands. But alignment, true, conscious alignment, allows you to move through life with grace, to endure its storms without losing your center, to celebrate its gifts without clinging to them, to face its losses without being shattered by them. Ask yourself, am I trying to dominate life or align with it? Am I exhausting myself trying to control every variable, or am I learning to trust the intelligence woven into every moment? Because freedom isn't about escaping life's conditions. It's about transcending your resistance to them. It's about meeting life as it is, not as you wish it to be, and finding your strength, your creativity, your peace within that reality. When you align with life, you stop being a prisoner of outcomes. You stop needing the world to validate your worth. You stop demanding that everything unfold according to your limited vision. Instead, you move with a deeper rhythm, a quieter certainty that no matter what happens, you are free. Free to respond with wisdom, free to grow through pain, free to love without possession, free to live fully, fiercely, beautifully, exactly where you are. Because real freedom was never about controlling life. It was about learning how to dance with it, skillfully, joyfully, and above all, authentically. There is a quiet revolution that happens inside you when you stop forcing life. Not because you stop caring, not because you lose your ambition, but because you finally realize the river was never your enemy. Life was never a problem to be solved or a machine to be conquered. It was, and always has been, a flow to join, a rhythm to feel, a dance to move with. All the exhaustion, all the anxiety, all the pressure we carry so heavily on our backs, much of it dissolves the moment we step out of the race and back into the current. The moment we trade domination for alignment, force for presence, fear for trust. Alan Watts reminded us again and again, life is not a problem to be solved, but an experience to be lived. And Marcus Aurelius whispered through the centuries, peace is within you, not in the chaos around you, not in the outcomes you chase, but in the stillness you learn to carry into every storm. You are not behind, you are not broken, you are not losing because you're moving slower, or because life doesn't look exactly as you planned. Maybe you are exactly where you need to be. Maybe the struggle itself was never necessary. Maybe what life is asking of you is not more pressure, but more presence. Not more control, but more connection. Not more speed, but more surrender. So here's the quiet invitation. Loosen your grip. Trust your steps. Flow with life, not against it. Because when you stop forcing, life doesn't abandon you. It carries you. It opens doors you couldn't have pried open. It leads you to places your plans could never have imagined. And maybe, just maybe, you'll discover that the life you were trying so hard to create was already waiting for you, just beyond the noise of your own struggle. If this episode resonated with you, I invite you to share it with someone who might need this reminder too. Subscribe for more reflections like this. And keep flowing, keep trusting, keep showing up to your life with open hands and a fearless heart. Because the river is moving. And now, so are you.